Howdy folks, welcome to the channel. I'm Don. I'm taking a look now at Robyn Walsh. I've done a few reactions to some of her shorter videos, and this one is Paul did not make up Jesus. So we're going to hear her reasons for it. Now, anything that I've seen of her, she is not like a proselytizer in a sense. She's an historian, she's a New Testament scholar. And all of her opinions, obviously, I don't know them, not even the major ones. But the way she presents herself is similar to the way in which Bart Ehrman presents himself. And the two of them have been connected in some way. I think maybe she's learned from him. She's a professor at the University of Miami. And Bart is, I think he's still the chair at UNC, Chapel Hill, of the theology department there. And they have similar presentations of their material, rather pleasant. You don't have to agree with them, but you never feel like, wow, he or she is blowing me back here. But let's see why she says Jesus was not made up by Paul. And there's a similar theme here, if you will, where Socrates, it's theorized, and now I was a philosophy major at Rutgers, and I was actually at Rutgers at the same time. I think Bart was teaching a theology class or two, but our paths didn't cross as far as I recall. I never took a theology class back then. I was an avowed atheist when I was there. But as a philosopher, Plato was a student of Socrates, and Socrates didn't write. He didn't publish. Everything that we have basically that's handed down to us, the bulk of it is from Plato, saying that Socrates said these things. And then Aristotle was a student of Plato. And there's not the same debate or wonder if Aristotle created Plato. It's pretty well established that the two of them both existed. But then it's like, did Socrates really exist? And I think most philosophers would say, yeah, he did. But one of my professors, Professor Richard Henson, made a comment in class one time that Jesus and Socrates had a big thing in common. They both had a lot to say, and neither of them published. And that's just it. Like, Jesus didn't publish anything as far as we know. If he did write something, those writings, we don't have them as far as I know. Bart and Robyn could speak to that because that's their area of expertise, one of their areas. But it has been theorized that Paul made Jesus up. Let's see why she says,
The reason I'm not a mythicist is because I think it's way too much effort to have to dispel, Paul tells us, he talks to James, he talks to Peter, that these were Christ followers in, his lifetime. It's too much work for me. And he doesn't get along with them either. It's too much work for me to imagine like those two made up Jesus and now Paul's making up, knowing the guys who knew it, and that it's all just like a fake thing. I don't think human beings work that way sociologically very often.
Good point.
He has to claim I'm talking to the risen Christ because his so-called competitors, not competitors like super apostles, but, other people who are claiming, authority with the early church, actually knew the guy. And so he's able to claim like, well, I talked to him more recently than you did. And so it's really important to him to have that Christ figure, that risen Jesus, those divination experiences as a source of authority.
I like it. I like that. Yeah, that is one of the knocks that I know some Jews have, you say observant Jews have, regarding the difference between, say, Moses going up with the tablets to get the commandments versus Paul. And there were witnesses that witnessed Moses doing his thing. Paul's conversion experience on his way to Damascus evidently happened alone. Now, there's part of the text where it says people, heard this voice from heaven and they all fell down and all this stuff. And then Paul wound up conversing according to his own testimony that he had this interaction with Jesus. Paul, why are you persecuting me? And that'll certainly get your attention. It isn't, Paul, you're my chosen one. You're so wonderful, because people would just dismiss that more readily, let's put it that way, than something that starts out in conflict. because we are drawn into conflict. Watch any TV show or movie and you'll see the driving force behind virtually all of it is conflict. Even in comedy, there's conflict. Watch Ace Ventura or anything. Somebody wants something else, and there's conflict. And humor comes out of it or drama comes out of it, but conflict draws us in. So here, and I don't want to call it a literary device because if it's true, it's not a device, it's just true. So I'm not taking this commentary in that direction. But Jesus, according to Paul, said, "Why are you persecuting me?" And then Paul was blind and basically incapacitated for 3 days, which does bespeak a stroke. And without going into all that then he recovered from it, several days later and was able to move on. But to claim I spoke with him from the heavenly throne is quite a powerful statement. But I like what she said here. She keeps it very human. We mythologize the people who wrote these texts, assuming they wrote them, but that human beings have their stamp on these texts. It removes the sort of mystical quality from them. And Paul did not get along with these folks, like James, Jesus' brother, and others. Paul didn't get along with a lot of people. He split. He went this way. He got along with Timothy, but they went their way, and others went their way. And Paul was abrasive, according to the text, extremely abrasive. And he championed his own intellect and his own learning and such. And he may have been right in it, but still, we look at that in contemporary society, and maybe I'm doing a sense of presentism or viewing this anachronistically, but he came out and said, if you think you're so smart, I'm more educated than you. Here's where I was in Israel, and here's where I wasn't here, and this is what I did. And he made himself out to be a super apostle. But it is a very salient point that what is the likelihood that people who did not get along would tell the same story about the life of Jesus? Right? When people don't like each other, they roll over on each other. And if somebody has this scheme to create this mythical or mystical, really mythical story in this context of a man who was also God and Messiah and all this stuff, that they would all go along with one another, that somebody wouldn't blow the whistle at some point. And, on the other one, that look what Paul's doing, or Paul wouldn't, blast the other guys for, hey, well, look what they did. Jesus is one of the, I don't even, it's a good question. I've seen different numbers of how many siblings he likely had. He's the only one that's claimed to have been born of a virgin, so he was the eldest within the family, but he had siblings, had to have been younger siblings. Otherwise, the narrative would fall apart about Mary having been a virgin, impregnated by God, which is just an odd stomach-turning concept in ways. But Paul is establishing Jesus is the hierarchy here, if you will, part of it, that he spoke to me from heaven, from the heavenly realm. And you guys may have known him as your brother here on earth. My recency establishes that I'm a super apostle and you guys need to get in line. And so you could see why there'd be this headbutting going on. And when you read the text as having been written as the word of God, that God had people dictate this, so these are just God's words, it strips the texts from that sense of humanity, of look what's really going on here as a human document, a human interactions. This is very real that these people didn't get along. Even though they're preaching peace and kumbaya, my Lord, literally, that peace and love and kindness and gentleness and patience and all these wonderful precepts and ideas and ways of living, they didn't live it necessarily. They preached it, but they didn't get along with each other. Anyhow, yeah, it's amazing you can get all that from, 40 seconds or something of what Robyn shared. But that's what's there. There's a lot more in there as well. So, all right, folks, leave your comments. I love being on this journey of life and thought and contemplating things, whether theological, atheistic concepts. Don't bother me. I like thinking. Have a great day. See you on another video and keep thinking philosophically.